Today I am speaking primarily to those of you who are experiencing pain, disappointment, or perhaps grief. If you're going through the breakup of a relationship, the death of a loved one perhaps, injury, a sickness, maybe loneliness or exhaustion, the loss of your job, the loss of energy, faith, the loss of hope even, I am speaking directly to you. Let's just call all of these things, and you know there are hundreds more like them. Let's call them pain. We often try to move away from pain, which is really only helpful before we're being hurt. But once we are in pain, it seems to me that the only way out is through. Like somebody falling off a boat, struggling to stay above the water. This only makes things worse. We must accept that we are there and settle enough so that we can be carried by the deep water. The willingness to do this, I think, is the genesis of faith. The giving over to currents that are larger than us. Even fallen leaves float on the water in lakes, demonstrating how surrender can hold us up. We can learn from leaves that ducks swim around. In life, as in water, when we curl up or flail about, we begin to sink. But when we lie on our backs, we spread out, we go still, and we float. We are carried by the largest sea of all, the sea of grace that flows steadily beneath the turmoil of the events of our lives. And you know, just as fish can't see the water that they live in, we can't quite see the spirit that sustains us. Again and again, the onset of trouble or pain makes us curl up, clutch, flail, and sink. Do you realize how difficult it is, especially for most men, with our fix and manage mentality, to surrender ourselves? There's very little in our psyche prepared to understand the spiritual wisdom of surrender. It doesn't come easily. And yet all of the great world religions teach surrender in some form. Yet most people don't think that surrender is really necessary until they experience something great, some catastrophe that they cannot understand, fix, change, or control. These matters teach us the importance and the necessity of surrender. These are the holes in our soul where we break down and then God breaks through. What are the holes in your soul? What parts of you are poor or oppressed or abused or unappreciated or just forgotten? Well, as an example of what I'm talking about, I'd like to tell you the story of a man called Bill Mitchell, who lives today in a town called Crested Butte in Colorado. It's a very famous ski resort. Mitchell is one of the most amazing and inspirational people on the planet. In 1971, a laundry truck turned in front of the motorbike that he was riding in San Francisco, and it burst into flames. His face and hands were badly burned, and he lost most of each of his 10 fingers. He suffered serious burns, and 65% of his body was completely scarred, including his face and his head. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, 4 years later, he was in a plane crash. He crashed on takeoff in a small aircraft that he was piloting due to ice on the wings, and he injured his spine, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. But did Bill complain and wither away? Did he flail about? Did he curl up and just sink? Not at all. In 1977, just 2 years later, he ran for political office and he was elected the mayor of Crested Butte in Colorado. And you know what his campaign slogan was? I love this. It was, "Not just another pretty face." During his time in office as mayor, he stopped Amex, which is now Freeport-McMoRan, from building a $1 billion molybdenum mine on Mount Emmons. Because of the anticipated environmental impact, Mitchell claims that he saved a mountain. Today he travels around the world sharing the message that it is not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. That is his message. And apparently, I've never met him, but apparently he's one of the nicest, most approachable and genuine people you will ever meet. Now, Mitchell says that before his burns and his accident, there were 10,000 things that he could do. But after his accident, he could still do 9,000 of those things. So he figured, why complain about the things that he couldn't do when he could focus on the 9,000 things that he could still accomplish? So after life threw him not one, but 2 curveballs, he stopped, he surrendered, he realized that there were still thousands of things that he was still grateful for, and understanding what they were, he emerged with a concrete plan of action.
It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. Stuff happens. Life happens.
So how about you? Now, your story might not be nearly as dramatic as Mitchell's, but how easy is it for you to get to gratitude in challenging situations? By strengthening your, let's call it your gratitude muscle, you will find it easier to choose to appreciate instead of to just complain. So my friends, may I offer you something to reflect on? Something that I think will help you in these kind of situations. Whenever you can, walk or just sit by a lake or a pond and watch the leaves floating on the surface. Try to be like a fallen leaf. Just think of nothing. Then just breathe and let your heart and your mind be carried, however briefly, by the spirit that you can't quite see. And then slowly list 4 or 5 or 10 things that you are grateful for in your life. If you've been dealt a real knockout blow, fairly or unfairly, if your story is not going the way that you want, then make a conscious choice to try and create a different ending. Then get out of the way and let God into that hole in your soul. Remember people like Bill Mitchell. How first we open up after doubling over is crucial to whether we will heal at all. God bless you.